I faked a pregnancy and got caught. I'm shooketh.
Welcome to The Confessional, a series where you guys send me your confessions through here and I tell them on TikTok so you can get some genuine advice.
My husband and I are more like best friends. To be honest, I don't think he's ever really been attracted to me, and that's what hurts me the most. So you decided to fake a pregnancy. I mean, that makes sense. You guys, I got Botox and I have angry brows. Can you tell? Yesterday was my birthday, so happy birthday to me. When my husband and I first met, he chased me for about 6 months. I refused to go out with him because I thought he was too short. Short king. Just absorbed everything I put on my face right now. We actually ended up having a mutual friend on Instagram, and he reached out to me and convinced me to go on a date with him. Well, it turns out that he comes from a multi-million-dollar family. His parents own about 12 businesses, and he's set to inherit millions, if not billions. After the first date, we were inseparable. We'll be setting with powder foundation. This is the She Glam one. It's a waterproof. Hell yeah, baby. His parents absolutely loved me from the beginning. His mom even opened up to me one day and told me that she hated every single one of his exes, that they had zero personality, and that I was spunky and funny. Good for you, babe. Look at you winning your mother-in-law over. We got engaged 6 months later, and I felt that his parents were definitely pressuring him, to propose to me. A week after the engagement, his mom took me shopping for wedding dresses. She got me a Vera Wang dress. By the way, my parents were very happy about the engagement. They had never seen me happier before, and obviously marrying into a wealthy family was something that my parents always dreamed of since they didn't have a lot growing up. During the planning of the wedding, I felt him getting further and further away from me. I didn't know why, but I could feel that he didn't want to do it with me anymore. Every time doing the dirty would come up, he had an excuse and never wanted to do it. To begin with, when we were dating, he never really looked for me. That's not a good sign. For example, I was always the one texting him in the morning since I woke up earlier than him, and I was also the one to plan any dates. Suddenly, every single fight was about how he wouldn't help me plan the wedding and how I was always trying to see him instead of him seeing me. In a relationship, a man should chase the woman. That is correct. And if he's not chasing, then he's not interested. I'm gonna do orange mascara. I'm feeling a monochromatic look, you know? I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna show you guys my dress when the whole look is done. I mustered up the courage to ask him if anything was wrong, and he said no, nothing was wrong. So here's where everything goes down. 2 months after getting married, we were still having the same problem. He wasn't wanting to do it, so I had to come up with a plan. I asked him if he was cheating on me. He said no. I checked his phone, computers, nothing. I even followed him for a week straight. This only led me to one conclusion. He was no longer attracted to me, and it broke my heart. Later on, I found a message between him and his lawyer asking to draw up divorce papers. Coming from a poor background, there was no way I was about to lose everything. At that point, his parents had helped me open up my own business. They bought me a new Mercedes, and they even helped my parents pay off their mortgage. My husband came home from work and I told him that I was pregnant. The look on his face was of horror. He was not happy, but he played it off. What ensued after that was 3 months of pure chaos. I was eating about 4,000 calories a day to gain weight. I've always been a very skinny person and can't gain weight easily. Good for you. I was going to doctor visits once a week and told him to stay outside. He did. I convinced him to keep it a secret between us until we knew that the baby was completely healthy. So we didn't tell our parents. I actually told my parents the truth. And when I told them that I was faking the pregnancy, they told me I needed to stop immediately. My husband ended up telling his parents after the 3 months. My mother-in-law went crazy trying to plan a baby shower. And as you can imagine, them being as rich as they are, she was planning it like it was a wedding. My husband, on the other hand, started having some suspicions. He asked me why my belly wasn't growing as fast. I gaslit him into believing that the women in my family didn't start showing up until 6 months. Instead, he went to the doctor's office and insisted to come inside. I obviously wasn't pregnant, so I had to tell him the truth. He looked at me and said, I knew it. He filed the divorce papers 2 days later. I now live back with my parents. My mother and father-in-law refuse to speak to me. I desperately want to get back with my husband, even though I know he's not attracted to me. Is this crazy, or should I stop? I go to his house every single day and sit outside for hours until he lets me in. He refuses to talk about the marriage and says that we can stay friends. If he does not want you, it's because he doesn't want you. Should she try to convince her husband to get back with her, or what? You guys let her know. Now I'm going to show you the dress. What do you guys think? Bye! I fell in love and married my stepdad. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. My real father and mother divorced 10 years ago. I was 12 at the time and went through a really bad depression. My mom has always been a little bit toxic. She's always been on top of me about my weight. She even measured my waist, and if I went up an inch or two, she would ground me for a month. Since my dad was not like that, I decided to live with him. My mom remarried shortly after their divorce, and my stepdad turned out to be an angel. He completely understood why I didn't get along with my mom, and he even tried helping my mom get along with me. It worked for a little bit, but then they got divorced. After their divorce, I started hanging out with him at
at his apartment. I was 19, he was 37. No, I don't think he GROOMED'd me. He was nothing but sweet to me, but I had deep feelings for him. When I came out and told him, he told me that we couldn't see each other. But I kissed him. We kissed each other and then we were inseparable. I even lost my V card to him. I finally told my dad and he accepted the relationship. But when I told my mom, she completely cut me off. He and I got married last year. Since I was the one that started everything, I don't think it's wrong of him. I want to get pregnant as soon as possible, but my friends think I should wait. They think I should be with somebody younger. What should I do?
Got pregnant off a first date and lied to my ex and told him it was his baby. Am I wrong for this?
Welcome to the confessional, a series where you guys send me your confessions through here and I tell them here on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube so that you can get some real advice.
My ex broke up with me last year for cheating on him. Very bad start. He caught me making out with the coworker after work. Girl, you sound messy as hell. Of course, I begged him to stay with me, but he was not taking me back. After he broke up with me, I was super happy though. It meant I could finally hook up with guys again. I felt free and I started hoeing out. Okay. The breakup was pretty bad though on my end. Unfortunately, I had just gotten fired from my job and he was the only person helping me pay for my rent. Girl, you cheated on a man that helped you pay for your rent? I started working at a strip club when I was 18 years old and my parents had kicked me out. By the time I met him, I got fired from the strip club for fighting too much with all the other dancers. When I got fired from the strip club, I only had about $200 in my savings. My boyfriend let me live in his apartment rent-free for 6 months. I basically became a stay-at-home girlfriend and I would cook his meals, do his laundry, clean his apartment. He works in tech and makes a lot of money, so for him, this was no issue. The more I tell this story, the more ungrateful I sound. I swear I'm a good person. That's when my ex got me a job at the company that he worked for. Began as an assistant and I was earning really good money. That's when I met a guy at the company. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, that's so funny. Unfortunately, we were very attracted to each other and I couldn't resist. So your poor boyfriend at this point has gotten you a job, let you live in his apartment rent-free for 6 months. Treated you like a queen apparently, so you go and cheat on him, okay? We started hooking up in his car, but really wasn't anything serious. I was planning on doing a whole cut crease. Fast forward to when he caught me cheating, he kicked me out of his house the very same day. I didn't even have a suitcase, so I had to put everything in trash bags. So embarrassing. I ended up sneaking into my own house and sleeping in my old bedroom without my parents noticing. Luckily, my ex did not get me fired from the job and I was able to save some money. After a full week of crying for my ex, I decided to sign up for some dating apps. The first few dates were horrible. The first guy asked me to split a bill, and the second one pressured me into doing it. He so didn't have to, like, at all. 2 months later, my period is super late, but I knew that I had only done it with one of the guys that I had been on a date with in the past 2 months. I went to get a pregnancy test and it came out positive. I immediately called the guy that got me pregnant and he denied everything. By the way, this is the guy that pressured me into doing it. That's when I thought I should just tell my ex that I'm pregnant and make him believe it's his baby. And essentially that's exactly what I did. I called my ex crying and I told him that I needed to see him immediately. His reaction was not at all what I expected. He actually started to cry and said that he would help me out. At this point, he hadn't even asked if the baby was his. He hasn't mentioned a paternity test and he completely blindly believes me. I moved back into his apartment, he gave me a debit card and a credit card, and we're happier than ever. I sometimes feel like an asshole for doing this, but I know that there was no way I could raise that kid on my own. Do you think I'm wrong for this? I think this is a very complicated situation and I completely understand that you are afraid and that you don't want the baby to be without a dad because of course that's horrible. I grew up without a father, but lying to your ex is just on a whole other level. He didn't ask you if the baby was his and he was telling you that he was willing to help you. It sounds to me like maybe the lie wasn't even necessary. Maybe he would have offered to help you anyway. And if you have an update, send it to me. I love you guys. Bye. My best friend always projects her insecurities onto me. Should I break up with her? My best friend and I have known each other for exactly 2 years. We met in college and hit it off right away. We're both Latinas and we come from really big families. I have 2 other sisters and we get along really well. We always hype each other up and have each other's backs. A few months after I started my friendship with my best friend, let's call her Lucia. Lucia started showing some really toxic qualities. Sometimes I think I'm just reading too much into it or overreacting. So you let me know. First of all, she would start talking bad about my sisters in front of me. She would make comments like, wow, your sister's gained weight, or wow, your sister has cellulite. When she first did this, I would just defend my sisters, but then I realized that just made her want to keep talking more trash. So if she ever said anything about my sisters, I wouldn't say anything. At the time our friendship started, I had a really big crush on this guy. He and I went to the same gym and I never had the courage to speak to him, not until my sister convinced me to. I finally spoke to him at the gym and we actually hit it off. We would work out together every now and then and he finally asked me out on a date. The day of our date, my best friend came over to my house, and while I was getting ready, she started saying really weird things. At first she told me that I should
should wash my hair because it looked oily. I told her my hair was freshly washed. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I could see her reflection and she just rolled her eyes at me. This is when things started clicking. Part 2 is up. My best friend projects her insecurities on me. Should I break up with her? I could see through the mirror that she had rolled her eyes at me. Then she started making other comments about my appearance. Mind you, I'm getting ready for a date. When I showed her the outfit that I was gonna wear, she said it was too revealing and that I would probably scare him off. It wasn't even revealing, it just showed my legs. It was a cute sundress with a cardigan on top. I told her I thought I looked cute. And then she said, "Allá tú, amiga." As I'm finishing up my hair and my makeup, she says, "Wow, you're gonna wear that much makeup?" But the way she said it was so aggressive, I actually took off the lipstick I was wearing. Instead, I just put on lip balm. I looked at her and she had a smile on her face. It was like she was happy she finally got to me. The date went really well and he actually turned into my boyfriend a few weeks later. And guess what? My best friend started judging everything about him. The first time she met him, she started saying, "Wow, I think he's balding," which he isn't. And even if he was, I wouldn't care. She also started making comments about him staring at other girls, something I never even noticed that he did, and I would know I'm with him all the time. It's like she was trying to plant all these insecurities in my head. One day, Lucia and my boyfriend and I are in his car. We were heading to the movie theaters when Lucia says, "Wow, you put on way too much perfume. It's giving me a headache." That's when my boyfriend told her that if it bothered her that much, she should just go home. And out of nowhere, Lucia swung her fist at him. She actually tried to attack him. Part 3 is up. Best friend always projects her insecurities on me. Should I break up with her? That's when she started swinging at my boyfriend. Luckily, I yelled at her and she stopped. It's like she was upset at me for yelling at her for trying to hit my boyfriend. That's when my boyfriend kicked her out of the car and I asked him to calm down. I got out of the car with Lucia and asked her to calm down. That's when she told me that I needed to break up with him and that he was clearly abusive. I told her he was just defending me. Then she said, "He doesn't need to defend you. I'm only saying this because I care about you." Then she called herself an Uber and left. My boyfriend and I went to the movie theaters and we had a really nice night. Here's some more examples of her projecting on me. While we were getting ready for a friend's birthday party, she started pointing out some stuff on my body. She said, "Your elbows are really dark. You need to fix that." Another time I decided to get some highlights and she said they looked horrible on me. She said I looked like a JLo wannabe. Luckily, I didn't care and I just kept the highlights. Mind you, 2 months later, she got the exact same highlights. Now, I know that she cares about me because she does have my back. She'll help me with anything I need, honestly. And I wonder if I'm overreacting, but I don't think so. I just don't know how to tell her that she's toxic. She makes me feel bad. What should I do?
I was accused of sexually harassing a man and I got fired for it. I am terrified of telling you guys this story because of who I'm gonna mention. The company that I worked for is very powerful and I think that they would sue me if I said names, but I'm gonna tell you guys anyway because what happened to me was really unfair. Back in 2018, I had just gotten married and my best friend was working at a company called S3 in New York City. At first, it was a really good company to work for because I was making a lot of money. The job was not incredibly hard. It wasn't really stressful or anything, so I actually really liked it. A little background on S3. It was a totally male-driven workplace. Majority of the men were middle-aged white men. My best friend and I were the only young females there, so as you guys can imagine, surrounded by all these older males, get stared at a lot. So my desk was next to someone called Justin, and Justin is the villain in this story. Justin and I sat next to each other and we became pretty friendly, work friends. I was not remotely interested in anything with him because I was married. We joked a lot. We talked about music. I'm a huge movie buff because I'm an actress, and he knew that. Specifically a movie called American Psycho with Christian Bale, which is one of my favorite movies. The joke was that he would be perfect in that role because he was living in New York, working in finance. My friend and some of the other people that worked there told me that ever since I had been hired, Justin was really friendly, in a good mood all the time. He would joke. Apparently, before I got there, he wasn't the joking type. He wasn't like happy or in a good mood. So that tells you a lot, right? I'm actually so nervous telling you guys this story because I'm mentioning names, but look at those brows. So I was very grateful for this job because it paid really well. To be honest, I just never knew what was coming. By the way, you guys, Justin knew that I was married. Like, we talked about my husband. One day I get a message from the guy who hired me at the job, and his name was Gabe. He was the manager. I get a text from Gabe and he's like, basically, "Don't come in today. We don't need you to come in today." I immediately froze and felt sick to my stomach. Obviously that's weird, right? For your job to tell you that. And I even texted Gabe and said, "What's wrong?" He said nothing. Sorry guys, I had to turn on the AC because I'm starting to sweat. The following day, I'm fully expecting to go back into work because I went to work every single day. If I'm not mistaken, I get an email this time from Gabe saying not to come in. I immediately text Serena and I was like, "What the heck?" She said, "Just relax, it's okay, we don't know what's happening." And I was like, "Okay, fine." Later that day, she tells me if I could meet her in the park. We both had a bad feeling. She had a bad feeling. feeling. I had a bad feeling. And as soon as I see Serena, my best friend, she starts to cry. And then I start to cry. She wasn't alone. She was with Jason, who was somebody who worked at S3 as well. By the way, Jason did the exact same job Serena and I did and got paid a whole lot more than her and I did. A whole lot more. Which doesn't surprise me, coming from white middle-aged men thinking that women should earn less than men. I think the first words out of my mouth were, "What happened?" And that's when she says, "I don't know why they're firing you." We both cried. Her and Jason comforted me as much as they could. I went home. And when I get home, guess who I text? Because I'm trying to find out information. I'm trying to find out what happened, what went wrong. I text Justin. "You're not gonna believe this. I just got fired." And I asked him, "Have you heard anything? Have you overheard any conversations about why I was fired?" And guess what he says, you guys? Jesus Christ. "Oh, if you ever need any financial help, let me know. I'm here for you." That's really kind of him. And he said no, that he hadn't heard anything. And I decided to believe him. I got an email from the company sending my severance letter. I emailed back and I think I said, "Why? Can I know why? Like, what did I do?" They weren't telling me why. They weren't telling me anything. Is that even legal that you get fired and they don't tell you why? Months go by. I'm on my honeymoon. I didn't have my honeymoon right after I got married. I had it after. Serena calls me and she tells me, "I finally found out what happened and why you were fired." And I remember her even saying, like, "Do you want me to tell you right now or do you want to like wait until you come back?" And I was like, no, tell me right now," which is so sweet of her for just even considering my feelings, because I was on my honeymoon and she didn't want to, ruin anything for me. She tells me that one of the other girls that was working there overheard a conversation about how Justin had told the owner of the company, Justin told Bob I was offering him blowjobs when no one was around, and that I had done it on several occasions. Listen, I know men get harassed in the workplace, they get sexually assaulted, but here are the facts. I have been harassed. I have been sexually assaulted. And that's happened on several occasions. I would never repeat that behavior onto somebody else. I would never, ever do that. If you're watching this and that's happened to you, I'm so sorry. Also, why would I do that in the workplace knowing that I could lose my job? Why would I ever do that? So what could Bob, the owner, do other than fire me? Nothing. He was gonna fire me. They fired me. They didn't ask me questions. There was no investigation. You know what made me so upset? The fact that these people, they thought that I was a predator. And there was no way for me to rectify that. There was no way for me to be like, "Hey, that's not true." I couldn't defend myself. I wasn't given the chance to do that. This girl gathered that Justin had very strong feelings for me, that he couldn't deal with it, and that the only thing that he could do was to get me fired so that I could be away from him because he had very strong feelings for me. What happened to me after I got fired was pretty bad. I would say I was even traumatized. I was so afraid. What could I have done wrong? It was easy to just fire me, throw me away, like I was nothing. No explanation. It's like someone pulled the floor from under you and you're just left falling and you can't grab onto anything. Learn to recognize red flags and just, I guess, don't be as friendly to men in the workplace. And if you have a story time like mine that you want to share, you can send it to me on Instagram here. And I love you guys so much. Take care of yourselves. Bye.
Boyfriend thinks I'm disgusting for having periods and refuses to touch me or even have sexy time. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have only been dating for 3 months. We met on a dating app. He works in financing and I own my own business. He's 28 and I'm 22. But he is so not mature. When we first met, he came across as a really intelligent guy. After 6 dates, he asked me if I wanted to be his girlfriend and I said yes. I did feel like he was rushing into it a little bit, but I decided to take the risk. A few days after he asked me to be his girlfriend, I mentioned to him that I was going to get off the pill. I was having a lot of hormonal problems and the pill was probably causing it, and I knew that this was going to make my periods really heavy again. Well, when I said this to him, he said, "Wow, that's disgusting." Then he said, "My ex never had periods because she was always on the pill." Isn't that impossible? He was just lying to make me feel bad. And I literally sat there in the restaurant explaining to him why periods happen and why they are important. By the end of the conversation, he said it was still gross and that he wouldn't want to touch me when I was on it in case he got blood on him. Then he brought up his ex again. He said that she was always so clean. I got up from the table and I walked away. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend told me I'm disgusting for getting my period and he refuses to touch me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's me on Instagram. The following day, he called me and asked me if I still had my period. I told him no, and he said, "Okay, then I can come over." When he came over to my apartment, I asked him what was his problem with periods. He told me that it was disgusting and that women should try to get rid of them. Then he started insisting on me taking the pill again so that I could stop having periods. I told him he had no right over my body and that I would do whatever I wanted. He ended up going home and we didn't speak for a few days. He finally calls me and tells me that he's sorry for calling me disgusting
disgusting. Ugh. But this time I actually had my period. So when he came over, I wanted to test him. I kissed him and told him that I wanted to do it. Then he said, okay. I told him I had to go to the bathroom to remove my pad. Then he said, are you for real? That's so gross. Why would you invite me over knowing that you have your period? Then he said that he wouldn't come near me with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, this 28-year-old man said that. Then he told me that I probably smell really bad down there and that I should probably go take a shower right away. I didn't even know what to say to him. I opened my front door and I stood there. And he left. An hour later, he posts on his story that he's at a club with his friends. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend says that I'm disgusting for getting periods and he refuses to touch me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent him on Instagram. He posted a story that he was at a club. I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. So I didn't ask him anything. A few hours later, I check his story again and he's partying with all these random girls at the club. I asked him who they were and he said they were just girls that he met at the club. I was so angry I just turned off my phone. At 2 a.m, he shows up to my apartment drunk. He actually apologized but ended up falling asleep on my couch. The next day, I thanked him for apologizing and he said, what apology? I said, you came over last night and apologized. He said, no, I didn't. I would never have done that. I still think your periods are gross. I started to cry and he told me that I was overreacting. For the past 3 months, it's been like this. Every time I'm on my period, he refuses to even hang out with me. I told him a few weeks ago that I needed him to change because I needed his support when I had my period. He told me that he just couldn't do it. So I took to Instagram and got in contact with his ex. And I asked her if it was really true that she never got periods. She told me no, that it wasn't true and that he was just disgusted with periods in general. She told me that I shouldn't take it personally and that he also made her life a living hell whenever she got her period. Then she told me that he cheated on her several times when she had her period. Apparently it was just like a hall pass for him. So now I'm thinking about breaking up with him. When I'm not on my periods, we have a great time. But I want someone who will love me and support me no matter what. What should I do?
Story time about how my parents caught me selling my undies online. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. I'm extremely spoiled. My family is extremely rich. This allows me to buy whatever I want. The problem is my dad caught me sneaking out of my window, so he grounded me for 2 months and took away my allowance. And my allowance is a lot. My dad usually gave me $150 a week. With that money, I would go to Starbucks every single day before school, and I would also treat my friends to Starbucks every now and then, more like every day. My friends and I would go to restaurants and have fancy dinners and lunches, and I also had a car. I would also go shopping almost every single Friday with my friends. I would get manicures and pedicures, and I could basically buy myself whatever I wanted just by asking my dad for the money. But now that I was grounded, that was not going to happen. By the way, I'm 20 now, but this was 3 years ago, so I was 17 when all of this happened. I can confidently say that I was like the queen bee in my high school. Number 1, I was in the cheerleading squad. Number 2, I was super pretty popular and had lots of money. Therefore, everyone wanted to hang out with me. I knew that I needed to maintain my status and also the life that I had become accustomed to. Not being able to go to Starbucks every single morning really made me depressed. That probably made you roll your eyes, but I said what I said. Now, there was no way I was gonna go get a job somewhere. You would never catch me working at a cafe or a restaurant or something like that. So I knew I had to start making my own money online somehow. I did some research and found out that people would sell pictures and video of their feet. So I signed up for this stupid website and decided to do it. The problem was that by the end of the week, I had only made $46. This was clearly not enough. So I did some more research and found out that you could actually sell your undies. So I took my last $200, went to Victoria's Secret and stocked up on undies. And this is when things get really fun. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my parents caught me selling my undies online. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. So I took my last $200, went to Victoria's Secret and stocked up on undies. I signed up to this website and within a week, I had about 80 orders. So that means in 1 week, I sold $2,000 worth of my own underwear. This is when I realized that I could charge way more than I had been. So I doubled the price and the following week, I made $4,000. So here's the first mistake I made. I decided to tell my girlfriends about it and they decided to sign up and start selling their own undies. After a month, all of my friends and I were selling our undies, and we were all making bank. This also meant that we were spending lots of money. I started buying designer handbags and shoes. One of my friends even put a down payment to a car, and her parents started asking her tons of questions. And so did mine. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my parents caught me selling my undies online. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. When my parents realized that I was buying all these designer bags and shoes, they started asking me questions. I was strong and I kept my mouth shut. Now my friends, on the other hand, who were also selling their undies, one of them got questioned by her parents and she gave up all the information. She even told her parents that I was the mastermind behind everything and that I had told all the other girls to start selling their undies, which was true. So it was official, I had been caught. Of course, my mom's friend runs straight over to my house and she starts spilling all the beans to my parents.
parents. My dad and mom came straight to my room and started rummaging through everything. That's when they find all my purses, my shoes, had stacks of cash in my drawers, and under my mattress. All of my friends got grounded, but my parents decided to take it a step further. They were so disgusted with me that they actually kicked me out of the house. But the good news is I had a lot of money, so I got myself a really nice apartment. So jokes on my parents. With all the money that I made, I decided to start a side hustle. I have my own employees and run my business from my house. My parents and I still talk, and my dad's even invested into my new company. When I look back at what I did, I do feel shame, but at the same time, I've become so successful from that money. What should I invest in next? Story time about how my husband's mistress tried to mace me and kidnap me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Husband and I have been married for 4 months. So yeah, not very long. We dated for 2 years and everything was pretty much okay. At the beginning of the relationship, I had my doubts about him. I earn a lot more money than he does, and he's always resented me for that. He makes comments and jokes about how I'm the one that brings the bacon home. Finally, I told him that he needed to stop doing that, especially in front of our friends and family. But other than that, we've had a really great relationship. I never thought that he was capable of ever cheating on me. We finally got married back in 2017. The wedding was so special and our families were there. Our honeymoon was amazing, and when we got back home, we both decided that we wanted to buy a house together. Or mostly, like, I decided to buy a house and he would give me some money. Obviously, this didn't bother me because I knew it was our forever home, so I didn't mind paying for it and having him help me with the rest. After we settled into our new home, my husband decided that he wanted to get a better paying job. Obviously, this made me really happy because it would give him more confidence if he was earning more money. He decided to switch to financing and he started working on Wall Street. 2 months after getting married, he started earning way more money than I did. This made him so happy. But he quickly started to change. He only bought expensive designer stuff. One thing I did notice was that he never invited me to go to his office. Like the good wife I am, I decided to surprise him at his office with lunch. And when I got there, I was greeted by his assistant. I didn't get worried because I didn't find her very attractive. She looked very plain Jane and homely. But when I finally saw my husband, I asked him why he didn't tell me that he finally got his assistant. He told me that he just forgot and he didn't think it was important. So I let it go. But I noticed that his assistant was trying to be overly nice to me. And she was also asking me a lot of questions about my husband. But like I said, I didn't feel insecure at all just because I didn't think she was very attractive. At the end of the year, my husband and I are invited to the Christmas party. Of course, his assistant is there, and she proceeds to get drunk and start telling me things like how I was so lucky to be married to my husband and how I should be more grateful to him. Obviously, I took offense. I went straight to my husband and told him what his assistant said to me. That's when my husband laughed it off and said that I was reading into it. 2 seconds later, he's in his office with her yelling at her. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my husband's mistress tried to mace me and kidnap me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. That's when I catch my husband yelling at his assistant. All I could make out was that he was telling her to keep her mouth shut when she was around me. Obviously, these were all red flags. I decided not to say anything for the rest of the night, but his assistant kept drinking the entire night. That's when my husband pulled her aside and told her to go home. She started crying and she tried to hold his hand. And that's when I knew it. They were having an affair. Mind you, I didn't suspect anything. I just thought she wasn't very pretty. She was very plain Jane. I didn't think that my husband would ever find her attractive. After she left the party, I decided to pull my husband aside and ask him what was going on. I asked him if he was having an affair with her, and he told me the truth. He said yes. Obviously, this was really heartbreaking. We hadn't been married long. That's when he told me that he wanted independence from me because I was the one that paid for everything, and that he wanted to feel like a man, and that because I earned more money and paid for everything, he felt less of a man. Wow, great excuse. He promised to break things off because he had no feelings for her, and that he actually felt bad for using her because she was falling in love with him. I told him that he needed to fire her right away. The following day, he fired her. But she shows up at our doorstep. But of course, my husband wasn't home. As soon as I open the door and see that it's her, she pulls out pepper spray and sprays me in the face. I fall to the floor and she grabs me by my ankles and drags me to her car. She was like scary strong. She opened up her trunk door and actually tried to pull me inside, but she couldn't lift me. Luckily, one of my neighbors was there and started yelling at her to leave me alone. That's when she got in her car and drove off. The police pulled her over 2 miles away. In her car, she had a shovel and an axe. She told the cops that she was planning on aliving me so that she could stay with my stupid husband. She went to jail and my husband and I are still together. Should I get a divorce? I don't